Can you share a few words with the audience here, Mr. Banda, founder of MOCAT, about your vision for Africa?
Yeah, sure, not a problem. Let me just okay, so good morning, everyone. It's a Sunday morning. Good morning, everyone. It's a Sunday morning here, and I'm excited to be part of this important collaboration with VAC Solutions. My organization company is called the Motivational Center for Africa's Transformation, MOCAT. Our training interventions are really more focused on mindset change and business development. We have had a vision for the transformation of Africa, looking at that, Africa, my country, Zambia's problems are similar of Africa's challenges. So we set up a company in 2000 to be able to look at, mindset change as a precursor for any development that should take place. That, it requires, although we have been having all these millions of dollars of money poured into the African continent, we have not had the transformation that is required. And we feel that, the starting point is really mindset change and mindset transformation. So our company is focused on that, to be able to start from our nation state and go to the continent, which is our vision. And the collaboration with VAC Solutions came at the right time. And I was telling Arun that, well, you come in as a guru, bringing the enlightenment, because you brought in a new dimension of the digital space as a way for us to be able to go to the continent. We have been struggling to find what is the easiest way for us to fulfill our vision. And I think in the collaboration that we just signed is to using the digital space. I think that I see it being realized sooner than later. So I'm excited to be part of this forum today. And I'm all ears, ready to learn. Thank you, and God bless each of you.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert, for your warm words. It shows your large-heartedness and the capacity to embrace change at the scale that you are dreaming. Let's hope you are able to manifest it, and that VAC Solution and this community of Diploma Master Trainers can contribute in some small way towards it. We will feel honored. Thank you. So, friends,
thank you very much. I'm the one who is honored to be speaking to such a big audience, such a big platform. I truly appreciate that, the digital space opened us to the global stage. So I'm very excited about it.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's start the program for today. Sujata ma'am and Tasneem have been made the co-host.
Yes, sir. Noted. Thank you.
Please allow the participants as they enter.
Yes, sir. Sure.
As usual, we will begin our program for the day with a salutation to our motherland. I welcome you all to this program, The Reptile Meets the Leader. This is a new perspective on leadership. I hope you will find this perspective interesting, useful, and applicable in your personal life. We will begin with a salutation to Motherland. All those of you who can stand up, please do so. Others can mute that video.
वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। वक्रतुंड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा।
Intention drives energy. Let us create within ourselves the intention to achieve the highest possible level of expertise in whatever we do, and may Lord Ganesha remove all obstacles in our way to achieving our objectives. Whenever we talk about objectives, I'm reminded of Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna in his Upadesha to Arjuna says that man is kept from achieving his goals not by obstacles, but by a clearer path to a much lesser goal. And let us not allow that to happen. Let us keep our focus on the highest ability that we can achieve and move towards it. One person who moved towards achieving his highest possible potential was this gentleman, Peter Ferdinand Drucker. He was an Austrian management consultant, educator, and author whose writings and philosophy contributed to the practical foundation of modern business corporation. You can say that he was in some small way responsible for the concept of a manager. Another equally famous person is Warren Gamaliel Bennis, an American scholar, organization consultant, and author, widely regarded as the pioneer of contemporary field of leadership studies. You see, juxtaposed in front of you, two people, one responsible for promoting the concept of a manager, and the other responsible for kickstarting research on the contemporary field of leadership, the manager versus a leader. This has been so much said, and there has been so much said and heard about these two terms that the distinction has got blurred. The common man and the pundits are both scratching their head in confusion and using these words without a clear distinction. Today, we will try and understand the history of leadership studies to understand what is leadership. Leadership is a multidisciplinary academic field of study that focuses on organizational context and in human life. Leadership studies has its origin in social science. It's a part of sociology, anthropology, psychology. It is also a part of humanities. Leadership is very closely linked to history and philosophy, as well as in professional and applied fields of the study of management and education. The field of leadership studies is closely linked to the field of organizational studies. Let us understand the evolution of leadership through the ages. It will give us a bird's eye view and help in spatially and visually orienting ourselves to this very important foundation of life. Yes, friends, you heard me right. A very, very important foundation of life. There is a raging debate going on the world over across boundaries as to whether leaders are born or made. The fact is, leadership transcends both these concepts and rises far above such trivial considerations as whether a leader is born or made. Leadership was first spoken of in 496 BC by Sun Tzu in his creation, The Art of War, where he characterized leadership as a mix of 5 traits: intelligence, credibility, humanness, and discipline. And then the battle was carried forward by Socrates, who lived between the year 470 to 399 BC, when he said that it is absolutely essential for a leader to have a deep knowledge about himself. Unless you have an intensely deep knowledge about yourself, you cannot become a leader. People will not follow you. If Socrates is there, can Plato be far behind? 423 to 347 BC. What did Plato say? Plato said that a leader should practice prudence, justice, temperaments, and courage. These, he said, were the essential qualities of a leader. You can see between the 3 of these gentlemen, they have already covered most of the traits which are extremely admirable. That brings us to Chanakya. How can we forget Chanakya? The person who gave Arthashastra to the world, who from behind the screen had built an empire. He said that a where leaders should put people first, should be accessible, should have the courage to hold people accountable, and never delay in dispensing justice by taking decision at the right time. Chanakya was closely followed in the footsteps by Niccolo Machiavelli. Come the modern age, came Machiavelli, making Machiavellism a byword in leadership and management. What did he say? He said a leader should be feared, but he should have the support of the people. That will be possible only when a leader has got good virtues and is always depending only on himself and not on others. He brought out some very salient feature about the leaders for the modern context. A leader should be feared, have support of the people, should practice good virtues, and should always depend only on himself and not on others. That brings us to the beginning of the great argument with Carlyle, Thomas Carlyle, propounding the great man theory, where he said, leaders are born and cannot be made. Leadership is an inherent trait or a characteristic which separates the ordinary from the extraordinary. That brings us to René Descartes' behavioral leadership theories. Thomas Carlyle had kicked up a huge storm by telling leaders are born and not made. Behavioral scientists started working on it, and Dr. René was the first person to divide leadership into the various types: the people-oriented leader, the task-oriented leader, participative leadership, status quo leadership, indifferent, dictatorial, country club, sound leader, opportunities leader, paternalistic leader, all sorts of leaders had exploded onto the scene. Every small nuance in leadership was created. René Descartes' behavioral leadership therapy was an ocean, a Pandora's box which he had opened. That brings us to Friedrich Fiedler's contingency theory. People needed something much more easy to handle. And the contingency theory was propounded by Fred Fiedler in 1960, when he said, leadership is contingent upon the internal and external situation, be it in the organization or in society. Internal situations create external situations where leadership surfaces. Who does not remember the colloquial aphorism, Majburi ka naam Mahatma Gandhi? If there was not a necessity, Mahatma Gandhi would have never transcended onto the landscape. A classic example of contingency theory by Fred Fiedler. Thereon we move to the modern era, where Herbert Simon, the Nobel Prize winner of 1978, propounded the bounded rationality theory and coined the portmanteau satisficing. He said leadership as an expression is an expression of bounded rationality. In other words, decision-making strategy and cognitive heuristics that entails searching the available alternatives until we achieve at the acceptable decision and we meet the threshold of the need, there is no leadership. That means leadership is a decision-making quality, and it should satisfy and suffice in the context in which it is expressed. Herbert A. Simon received a Nobel Prize for behavioral economics. He had beautifully defined how situations throw up leaders, and decision-making is an outcome of the situation and the alternatives available in which to take that decision. That brings us next to Ed Hollander's relationship theory. Ed Hollander's relationship theory was a direct outcome of Herbert A. Simon's satisficing of the bounded rationality theory, which says that leader-member exchange of transactional leadership. He says the transaction between a leader and a follower is what defines leadership. And it is always based upon trust and mutual respect. He said leadership cannot exist in the absence of trust and mutual respect. Really, leadership was evolving, as you can see. From Sun Tzu to 1917 science, Hollander relationship. It had evolved so much, but still, it had not answered the fundamental question. What is leadership? How is it happening? We have now B.M. Bass' transformational leadership theory of 1985. He said that leadership is a set of behavior that stimulates and initiates transformation in the followers. True, but vague to the core. That brings us to Daniel Kahneman, 1990. The reptile was slowly approaching its leader. He coined the phrases frames and biases to explain how what we understand as man is created. If frames and biases are what man is, then leadership has to be very closely associated to frames and biases. That brings us to Roberts' information processing theory of 1993. It was going to make a profound change in people. The behavior and actions of leaders are legitimized because of his or her personal character. Now he had totally brought in a new aspect to leadership, where personal character was going to be of great importance. And in 2002, Kahneman was awarded the Nobel Prize for explaining exactly how the mind works. The leader, the reptile, and at last met the leader. Let's see, my dear friends, how I say that the reptile had met the leader. We think that seeing is believing. We have always been told that seeing is believing. But is that the truth? The human brain constructs its images of reality and then projects them onto the external world. Our mental model determines the breadth and depth of our personal reality. How we think determines what you see and how you respond to it. In other words, reality is what each one of us believe. Belief comes first, explanation for beliefs comes later. Cognitive scientists have found that these biases, as they are called, the beliefs, are very observable even in infants as young as 6 months old. Can you believe it? That a 6-month-old child has already got biases and frames. That's what cognitive scientists call them. Life came on land from water 360 million years ago. What life had at that time is called the reptilian brain. This brain recorded everything that has happened since that fateful day. The beauty is that the memory of it is still present in you and in me today. The reptilian brain first appeared in fish nearly 500 million years ago. It continued to develop in amphibians and reached its most advanced stage in the reptiles roughly about 250 million years ago. Then appeared the limbic system in small mammals about 150 million years ago. Lastly, the neocortex began its spectacular expansion in primates scarcely 2 to 3 million years ago as the genus Homo emerged. I'll request you to remember this timeline because in just a few minutes, you are in for a rude shock, a very, very rude shock. Genetic memory is a memory present at birth that exists in the absence of sensory experience and is incorporated into the genome over long spans of time. What does that mean? It means we come onto this earth, born as an infant with only the genetic memory as the operating system, with which to work. And this genetic memory has come to us right from the beginning of time. I will now show the picture of a person. I want you to tell me if you can recognize who this leader is. Can any one of you recognize this leader? Please unmute and tell me.
Me.
Okay. Anyone else?
So I vaguely say, is it Nelson Mandela?
Okay. Anybody else? One of them is saying me. The other is saying Nelson Mandela. Would anyone else hazard a guess?
Is it you, sir?
Okay. That is the second viewpoint. Or third viewpoint. Who else is
It is every child born.
Absolutely right, Mr. Suraj. It could be anyone and everyone because the human DNA is 99.9% identical. Each one of us is similar to the other to the tune of 99.9%. A stretch of 118 bases that together become known as the human accelerator region in the brain is a part of the 0.1% that is different between all of us. That portion is called the HAR1. A stretch of 118 bases that together become known as human accelerator region. The acronym is HAR1. And this 0.1 depends upon the type of environment that you're born into and exposed to, and what is more, it is decided by what you absorb from the environment. You see here a child being born. In the very first second of its life, 11 million bits of information has entered into his brain. It has only genetic memory as it is coming out. 1 million bits has entered it the very first second. And the subsequent second brings in 11 million bits with it. Life and leadership has begun to take shape. With every second that is passing, 11 million bits of information are going in. How this information gets organized, no one knows. But they get organized in 4 different patterns. Today's session, the reptile meets the leader, is all about understanding the 4 patterns which cognitive science broadly calls frames. The first of these is called structure. So, friends, tell me, what did the child, as soon as it was born, observe? Of the 11 million bits of information which has gone in, tell me one particular type of information which must have gone in. Anyone would like to hazard a guess? So, Bala?
Is it crying, sir?
Bala, what is your date of birth?
7/3/1975.
On 7th of March, 1955.
75, sir.
75.
1975.
1975. You are still to be born.
Before that, I was not born.
So in 1975, 7th of March, when you are born, the very first second, you are maybe born at home or you are born in the hospital. What information went in? 11 million bits. Very funny question, isn't it? And the beauty of it is no one remembers anything in their life before the age of 3. Everything which has happened till the age of 3 is gone. But still, life is getting formed during that period. By the age of 5, 80% of all that you are going to be ever learning in your life is already learned. What a funny situation. The moment you are born, what do you see? Or see through your mind's eye? A structure. A doctor is there if you are born in the hospital. Nurses are there. Attendants are there. In the house, if you are born, you see your mother, then you see your father, you see the midwife, you see your grandparents, siblings. The house has got a bedroom, it has got a drawing room, it has got a kitchen, it has got a toilet. In other words, you find structure all over the world around you. You have entered into a world of structure from a world which you were in the womb, in the placental, in the fluid. You come out, amniotic fluid, you come out into a world full of structure. So the first observations are a hierarchy of authority, a chain of command, a division of labor. What you see, the doctor has got a particular authority. Below him, there is a group of people assisting him. He has got a chain of command. There is a division of labor. Each individual is doing something. Structure is what gets into the mind. The second, what do you see? People. Someone is called a doctor, someone is called a nurse, a mother, a father, a brother, a sister. You see people. Advocacy and empowerment. You see people talking on behalf of people. You see people empowering people. You see people supporting people. You find that you are helpless, but all around you, you find people talking on behalf of you, for you. You find people coming and helping you, supporting you. The third, political. Why political? Everyone is fighting for a space. Husband wants more authority, wife wants more say. Parents want more recognition, children want more liberty. All in all, everyone in the house, however close and however attached they may be, they are all fighting for a space for themselves. In other words, everyone is mapping the terrain, networking, forming coalitions, bargaining and negotiating with each other for a greater piece of the cake. And then you see the symbolic. People are conveying message, influencing people through symbols. Focus on history. People tell you this is how our family has evolved. This is what our grandparents did. This is a cultural heritage. You see people sharing values between each other. You see people modifying the values to the current context. You see heroes in the family. You are constantly being told how much your mother has sacrificed for you, how much your father is working for your well-being, how much your sisters and brothers and siblings are all doing so that you can live a comfortable life. You see rituals recognizing events. You see a party when someone succeeds. You see a birthday party when 1 year is concluded. You see a marriage being conducted as a ceremony to legalize two people coming together. All around you are rituals and ceremonies. And then you hear stories. Sitting on the lap of your grandparents, you hear Panchatantra stories, Aesop fables. You hear stories of victories of land, of emperors. And all this is happening as you are growing up, second to second after your birth. Correct me if I'm wrong, friends. Isn't that what is happening? You see all around you structures. You see people. You see people vying with each other for greater space and greater power, greater authority, greater say, a better relationship. and you see people using symbols to drive their message. All these things are going and getting written on the blank page of the child, which has come into this world only with the genetic memory. And as that happens, the mind is linking all the things which is receiving currently with the genetic memory which has been stored in it, and it is building stories of what the future will be like. The leader is getting born. Let us see what a structured person is. So now you find that there are 4 different types of frames through which this child is going to operate when it grows up. One of these frames is going to be predominant, and other frames are going to help him. No child, even twins, you know that twins, even if they have 100% DNA being the same instead of 99.9%, even they can develop different frames based upon God knows what, the distribution of the information which is going in, aligning itself with the past. It could get totally structured differently. So you have the first and foremost, the structured frame. What are the structured frame people? Structured people succeed less through inspiration than through their ability to design a strategy, roles, and coordination. They are totally focused upon structure. And they spend their maximum time in understanding the structure, the strategy which is going behind the structure, the roles, and the coordination between the various elements. In other words, they do their homework. Are you the type who does his homework? Then you have a very strong structure in you. Second thing is, they are people who want very clear goals. They deal in specifics. They avoid anything which is arbitrary, hypothetical, or abstract. Will everyone mute? I can hear some background noise coming from somewhere. They insist on clear goals. People with structured frame, a structured frame, insist on very clear goals. Third thing is, they are constantly evaluating their relationship, the strategy, and the environment. They rethink their structure. They constantly keep evaluating where they stand with the other person, and then they take steps according to that. They will not let a relationship move just like that. Be it between a husband and a wife, parents and children, siblings, boss and subordinate, or with peers, they are constantly reconsidering the structure and their position in the hierarchy of things. They are the people who focus on detail and implementation. They are very good executors. Because they have the capability to rethink and structure their relationship and strategy, they are fantastic executors. They focus on the detail. Nothing ever misses their eye. They are fantastic implementers, and they are not scared to experiment. Why they are not scared to experiment? Because they know that the world around them is a work in progress. It keeps on evolving itself. Relationships are not the same today what it was yesterday, and it is not going to be the same tomorrow. It can be redefined and redesigned. This is what a person who has got structure as his predominant frame will be like. They will do their homework well. They will insist on clear goals. If you give them a work, you have to specifically tell them what your expectations are. They will constantly be evaluating you and the relationship that you have with them, with him or her. They will always focus on the details of the implementation, and they are not averse to experimenting if they find that the going is not good. How does the social architecture of grouping happens by work units? How do these people, how can you see that there is a structured leadership present in this world? Is there proof that such a leadership exists? Let us see. Because man has created groups. If he were not capable of creating functional groups, he could not have been a good structured leader. A good structured leader will create functional groups based upon knowledge and skill. Take the examples of universities, academic departments, or classic industrial units of research, engineering, manufacturing, marketing, finance. Every company is split into various groups. Specialists are assigned for each function. And even among the specialists, based upon the experience and the capability to execute, there is a hierarchy. All these are expression of leadership, of structural capabilities. Then you have the functional groups based on time. Units created basis on the time as by day shift, evening shift, afternoon shift. All sorts of shifts are there. The coming up of a gig economy is again an expression of a functional group of people based upon the need of the time. Functional group based upon products. Groups organized by products are detergents versus bar soaps, wide body versus narrow body aircrafts, smartphone versus tablets, Android versus iPhones. All sorts of divisions we bring in and groups we bring in, segmentation we bring in. The first and foremost thing we learn in marketing. What is that? Segmentation. Identify your target segment. If you did not have a strong structural orientation, you would find it extremely difficult to divide your world into segments. The presence of a structure frame is what helps you see the differences in various groups and to create differentiation between various groups and products. Then comes functional group around processes. What are the functional group around processes? Groups established around customers and clients, in hospitals, wards created around patients of different types, pediatrics, intensive care, maternity, computer sales department organized by customers, corporate, government, education, individual. You see Microsoft selling Windows for schools, for students, for professionals, for home. All these are groups around functions and processes. Then you have the groups based on geographies. Grouping around places and geographies such as McDonald's outlets, Saravana Bhavan outlets in different countries or neighborhoods. You plan your offices in various regions, depending upon how functional it can be, how much of return it can generate, based upon the demographic advantages of opening an office there. And finally, you have groups based upon around customers and functions, a complete flow of work, order of fulfillment of processes. All these are groups, functional groups, which man has created only because of the presence of a structure frame in his mind. Based upon his expertise, you can say the leader is a structure-based leader, or maybe a person with a people orientation would be a people-based leader. So what is people structure in the person? Supposing in those early moments of your birth, people orientation got precedence. You are more enamored of people around you, the doctor, the nurses, the ward boys, or your mother, father, brother, uncle, aunt, grandparents. Possibly you could be a people-oriented person. They have a strong belief in people. They have a very strong belief in people. They believe people is what makes the society, people is what makes the world. They develop a philosophy and practice to put their belief into action. Their life is governed by the foundational principle of people are everything. And since they believe that people are everything, they are extremely visible and accessible. They are the life of the party. They are constantly engaging with somebody. They are constantly reaffirming their presence. They are available for anyone and everyone. They don't go into their shell. Extrovert or introvert, they're always there with their helping hand, with hands reached out, hearts open. And their motto is empower others. Because they feel and realize that it is only together that we can excel. Alone, you can do nothing, because that is a lesson they learned from the earliest moment of their life, because constantly they were depending on their mother, their father, their siblings for everything when they were totally helpless. For them, the hierarchy, the authority, the chain of command, the division of labor is less important. What is more important is there is someone to hold you and help you, empower you, and take you along in the path in your life. And what is it they do? It's easy to see that leaders who are people-oriented need to communicate clearly and persuasively. Because they are dealing with people, communication is a key constituent of their success story. And this communication can be divided into two parts: advocacy and inquiry. What is advocacy? Advocacy is public support or recommendation of a particular cause or policy. Inquiry goes far beyond inquiry. Inquiry is just to ask. Inquiry is asking for information. You are not just asking, you are investigating something. People-oriented people are very strong in these two fundamental aspects of advocacy and inquiry. Probing with questions and observations enables them to learn from experience and to acquire information they need if they are to understand what's going on. Even a 1 second old child is very eager to know what's going on, because the subconscious can keep it alive only if it can make sense of everything that's going on around it. So it practices what is known as inquiry. And then there is advocacy. The subconscious asks the conscious to move towards a particular cause or a situation which will help it to survive. That is why you might see young babies also gravitating to some people in the family more than they gravitate to others. No one can explain why, but it always happens. Maybe it moves towards a brother more than it would to another brother, or it moves towards one grandparent more than it moves towards another grandparent, or it moves towards one uncle or aunt more than it moves towards another. All this is because the subconscious, in conducting the inquiry, in investigating and finding information, feels greater safety with that person than with the other, and then it advocates the child to move towards him. And as the child grows, this trait is strengthened. And it starts practicing advocacy and inquiry in 4 angles of low and high. When there is low advocacy and low inquiry, that means when you are not conducting an investigation over a person and not gathering adequate information, what happens? Can anyone of you tell me? What happens?
We cannot take decisions.
You are very passive. You don't take decisions. You allow things just to be like that. And what will happen when you have conducted a lot of inquiry, but you don't advocate for that person?
Loses interest.
Can you think of any such person? You conduct a lot of inquiry about that person. You investigate that person very closely, but you are not advocating anything for him. What is the situation? The situation is when you inquire and find that there isn't much you can do to change this person's mentality. What do? Can any one of you tell me?
We keep teaching.
There are so many people, only one person is answering. Are the others there? What happens? Think of a situation where you are studying a person very closely, but you are not promoting him to somebody. Advocacy is what? Promoting a person, isn't it? What is happening in that case? What is your behavior with that person? Vinod? Mathur Saab?
You are taking a decision.
No trust. No trust.
Neutral. Okay, what do?
One might be fearing that if I advocate him, he will take his position.
When don't you advocate, but you do a lot of study?
Because there is no fear.
Mr. Niranjan? Yes, Mr. Jagdish?
He is not competent.
Competent. Think of yourself. When did you closely watch someone but did not praise that person to others? What did you do? Who was that person whom you watched very closely but did not praise him to others?
Is he a competitor?
Your boss.
Boss.
Did you not study him very closely?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
But
yes,
do
very
you go
much.
and talk good about him outside? What do? You are accommodating. Correct? Now let us look at a situation where you inquire very less, but you advocate that person very much. You inquire very less, but you advocate that person very much. What is your attitude at that stage? When you neither inquire nor advocate, you are very passive. You don't inquire about an auto wala outside your house. You don't recommend him to anybody. You are passive. He exists, doesn't exist, it doesn't make a difference to you. You inquire about your boss a lot, you study him, but you don't talk good about him or praise him or recommend him to anybody. You are accommodating that person. Now we come to the third type. You are praising and, recommending a person very much, but you are not inquiring much about him. What is the situation at that stage? Why we are discussing this is because if you want to change the situation, you will have to understand what exactly is happening in your reptilian brain. What is happening? You are accommodating your boss only because somewhere the reptilian brain is telling you, you have asked so many things, but you have not been able to find a way out to overcome these things. So better accommodate him. Your behavior with a person is in a particular way and you want to understand why you are behaving like this. In this particular behavior, which we are going to discuss, this is what is happening. You have not inquired about that person that much, but you are advocating him. What will happen in that case is, assertiveness. You think it is not necessary for me to know him so much. After all, I am the boss. I'm telling him and he has to do. And you will find always people who are sycophantic in nature. They will simply accept whatever the boss is telling. And when these things go into your mind, you simply start behaving like that. The assertiveness goes in. You find people rarely question the father. Whatever he says is law. In most of the movies, we have seen the Zamindar, nobody questions him. Whatever he says is the law. And what do we see? An assertive person. All these things, when it goes into our head, we develop the same nature. An assertive leader is one who does not inquire adequately. That is where the failures start for an assertive leader. Now let us move on to the fourth. What happens when there is high inquiry and high assertion? That means you inquire a lot about the person. You try to understand as much as is possible, and then you advocate that person very much. What happens? What happens is you find the right person for the right job, you place them and you succeed. That is called integrative behavior. From passive, normally people move towards accommodating or assertive. From passive, you move either towards accommodating or assertive. You have a new assignment. You enter the company, you are passive. You know nothing about anyone around you. And you are not in a position to recommend, talk, or approve of anything people are doing. You are in a passive state. You start observing. The more you ask questions, the more you find out about people. And then you see how people are behaving with that person. And you also fall in track. You might become accommodating. Or you have got a lot of authority with you. And you don't have a great amount of people orientation. You are maybe a structure-oriented person. You don't try to find out more about people, but you start accommodating, you start advocating people, you become assertive based upon how well they accept what you are telling. But if you are a genuine people-oriented person, caring and believing in empowerment, you will ask questions, understand, and advocate the right person into the right position, right responsibility. In other words, you will create a team through integration of both advocacy and inquiry. Is it clear? Any questions?
No.
Who all are there in the platform? Will a couple of you unmute your video so that I can see you? So how many of you feel that this explains leadership a bit more better manner? Anyone feels that this can be a better model for understanding leadership?
Yes, sir.
Very much so.
Okay. Now we move on to a case study. This is the, yes, all of you are on mute, please. I can hear some noise coming. This is a story of a father's son from Brazil. This is a tale of a father and son. A young chief executive who shifted from structural to human resource believes saving his company's future in the process. The name of the father is Kurt Semmler, who was born in Austria in 1912 and trained as an engineer before he moved to Brazil in the 1950s. This case study is from Harvard University. He built a company called Semco, a successful manufacturing business. The elder Semler, that is Kurt Semler, ran his company like a good Austrian engineer with strong emphasis on efficiency, command, and control. In other words, Kurt Semler was a true structure leader. Truly structured. He could build a company from, he moved in 1950 to Brazil. There he built somewhere around 1950, 52, he started the company. By 1982, the company had started facing painful dilemma. Sales had plummeted and the business was struggling. And it coincided with the downturn in the Brazilian economy. And it was at this juncture that his son had grown up, Ricardo Semler. This is the book on how Ricardo Semler made a huge impact on the international arena. Even Tom Peters, the author of the book, In Search of Excellence, has commented on what Ricardo Semler had done. Ricardo Semler liked to paint. Incidentally, that was his passion. He was not interested in doing business. But then Kurt Semler had built a business and he didn't want to leave it. So he persuaded Ricardo Semler to come and join the company. Ricardo Semler moved in, next cabin to Kurt Semler, and what he found was extremely disappointing and demotivating. He found a chief executive in Kurt Semler who was ruling the company with an iron hand. Total discipline. Goal-oriented, objective-oriented. There was no semblance of care and concern for people seen in the whole thing. Ricardo Semler continued with the company for a couple of years. Then a time came when he said, enough is enough. He threw in the towel and he said he's moving away. Tell me, what would you do if you were in Kurt Semler's place? Allow your son to go away? But Kurt Semler was very clear that his son was not cut out to run the company. He was an artist, a dreamer. What was required was an iron hand to run the giant called Semco. But unfortunately, Kurt Semler had no choice but to give in to Ricardo Semler. So he made Ricardo Semler the chief executive. And on the day he left, he told, Ricardo, whatever mistakes you want to make those while I am alive so that I can correct it. After I go, my son, you will not get the opportunity to make those mistakes because there'll be no one to correct it. Over time, Ricardo evolved an unorthodox philosophy of management. Totally unorthodox philosophy of management. He came in with the help of his father, continued to build the company. He totally, then, he moved in. And when he took over, he made a few very, very strategic changes. Number one, he got rid of all the key management managers. He got rid of them and replaced them with people who are more like him. The key to getting work done on time is to stop wearing a watch. He said, look, don't look at the watch. You come here to do something, achieve something. Only focus on that. Time is not important. You can come when you want. You can go when you want. All that I'm concerned about is that the job gets done. You are paid to do the job, not how much of work you are doing. He shifted the emphasis in the company from output to outcome. He was less interested in how many hours people were working. What they were doing in the off hours was none of his business. He was interested in more how the work was getting achieved. He decided that the best way to invest corporate profits is to give them to the employees. He discussed with the employees that this is how much I am going to keep. Whatever extra comes goes to you. Ensure that all the extra profits is disbursed to the employees. He decided the purpose of work is not to make money. What a drastic change in philosophy. He said the purpose of work is not to make money. The purpose of work is to make the employees, whether working shifts or top executives, feel good about their life. There was a total change. So much so that Semco became one of the topmost companies in the world, and it has become an example, a case study in Harvard University on what can happen when you shift from a structure to a people orientation. The industrial age had always focused on structure, the hierarchy, the chain of command, the division of labor, and management by objective as propounded by Peter Ferdinand Drucker had swept the world and the world of management. People were totally focused on what you are giving to the company. And here was a man, a young boy, who took the reins from a person called Kurt Semler, who was a very strong proponent of the structure framework and implemented the people framework. He said, you are your own manager. He said, work to deliver result, not in terms of how long you're working. He said a corporate profit is also meant for the employees because they are also co-owners of the company. And he said, you have come here to work, not to make money, but to make your life richer. When he implemented all these things, the company shot to the top. That, my dear friend, is an example of people frame that takes place when you're born. That brings us to the political frame. The child after it is born is seeing there is a constant, silent, underwater, undercurrent of struggle between father, mother, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunties, grandparents. Everyone within those four walls is having an undercurrent of political need of greater space, greater authority, greater recognition, greater time. Political people clarify what they want and what they can get, first to themselves and then strategically to the people around them. Political people are very, very strongly focused on what's in it for me, because that defines how they see the world. They always assess the distribution of power and interest. For them, you are not a human being. You are an entity who is interested in certain amount of power, and you have got certain self-interest for the achievement of which you are working. They are strongly aligned towards creating linkages with key stakeholders. The influencers matter more to them than the masses. In a group, there will be the people who will be able to identify the person who will influence this group the most, and then move towards him, chart him, scan him, identify his strengths and weaknesses, the areas where the linkages can be created, and strike a linkage for mutual benefit. They realize that it has to be a win-win situation. A win-lose situation will not take them anywhere. Then they move in to persuade. First, they try to persuade you. Then they will negotiate with you if you can't be persuaded. And even if that fails, they will coerce you into submission if necessary. Political people are very dangerous people to deal with. Office politics has seen many a career being ruined. If you don't know how to play politics at the highest echelons of management, you are extremely susceptible to be buried 6 feet deep. It is very essential for you to understand how the alignment of the political information has happened within your brain in those few moments of your birth. Let's see with a case study about this political thing. Before that, we will understand what are the key elements of a political framework. The question is not what sort of a society or organization are you in where politics is being played, but rather what kind of politics that you are engulfed with. Political dynamics can be sordid and destructive. It can be full of conspiracies. But politics can also be a vehicle for achieving noble purpose in public forums. The political frame provides the essential tools that leaders need to understand and cope with political dynamics they inevitably face. When you take charge of an organization, you are entering into a political arena. Organizations change and effectiveness depend upon your political skill and savvy. Constructive politicians know how to fashion an agenda, mob the political terrain, create a network of support, and negotiate with both allies and adversaries. Conflict is the key in political dealings. So obviously, the two things which are very key for a political savvy is definition of power and interest. What is the degree of power you will use will depend upon how conservative or how ambitious you are given the situation. Supposing you are very conservative and you don't want to use your power, what will be your nature? Let us understand, there are a lot of people here. And many of us take great pride in calling ourselves what we are when we are conservative and have very little power, or we don't use our power. What are we?
You become submissive.
Huh?
Submissive, sir.
In a way, yes, but the right word to use would be reasonable. You use reason. Supposing you don't want to use your power, but you're very ambitious. You're not conservative. What will you do to achieve your interests? That is, you are moving in this direction. You're very ambitious, but you have very little power, or you are unable to use your power. Situation is such. Then what will you do?
Build alliances.
Huh?
Alliances. Yeah.
Build alliances.
Vinod,
Build
you are
alliances.
in pharma selling, right?
Yeah.
You have no power over making a doctor prescribe. Correct?
Yeah.
But you are very ambitious and you want the doctor to prescribe. What will you do?
Become closer to that doctor.
What will you do? Practically think, what do you do? What do pharma people do when they want a doctor to prescribe their product, but they don't have the power to make him prescribe?
Bribe.
Correct. What you will do is you will offer inducements. Now let us come to the other side. You are conservative, but you have high power. Now what will you do? Conservative means what? You are very safety oriented.
Status quoist.
Think, you are doing this.
Blame, sir.
When you are very conservative,
Command.
but you have a lot of power, What do you
Command.
do? You bargain or negotiate with that person. You tell him, you do this, I will do this. Without your doing this, I will not do this, because you are conservative. If you are ambitious, then the bigger thing becomes entirely different. You have got high power, you got high ambition. What will you do?
Almost a go-getter.
You
Coerce.
will coerce or
Coerce.
induce the person. You will force the person to do it. And in the process, you will also bribe the person. Tell him, if you do this, you will get it. If you don't, you will lose your job. Don't you think that is what most managers do, Vinod?
Yes, sir.
They tell you, if you do what I'm telling, I will give you this. If you
Yeah.
don't do, I will sack you.
Yes.
That means you got no choice. Heads he wins, tails you lose. That is political machination at its best. Now look at your situation. If you are conservative, you have less power or no power, you are reasonable. When you see a reasonable person, check him. He will either have no power or he will be scared at using his power. And he will be very conservative. He will not be ambitious. He will not want to take risks. That is why he's being reasonable. When you find a person trying to bribe your way, bribe himself into your life and make you do things, you will find that he is not the deciding authority. He doesn't have the power, but he's ambitious and wants to grow. If you find a person who is negotiating and bargaining with you, trying to secure his return, and in the process do something for you, you will find he has got the power, but he's being conservative. And when you find a person who is ambitious and powerful, his language will be very, very clear. Do this, I will do for this for you. If you don't this, I will not only not do this for you, I will ruin you. Let us take the example of a case history. This is Anne Mulachi, who became president of Rank Xerox in August 2001. Xerox was a 17.1 billion. Xerox had a 17.1 billion in debt and had only 154 million in cash with it. That means it had to pay to the market and the bankers 17.1 billion, but had only 154 million in its kitty. So it was nowhere going to be able to do what it had to do, that is pay the market. It was on the verge of bankruptcy. The stock share had fallen by over 90%, from $63.69 a share, it had fallen to $4.43. In other words, the market cap had fallen by over 90%. That means Rank Xerox share was not even worth the paper it was printed on. It was under these conditions that Anne Mulachi was made the CEO, the president of Xerox in 2001. Warren Buffett, on hearing this, had summarized that plight succinctly. He made a press statement. He said, "You have not got promoted. You have gone to war. War with not just the company, but with the market forces, the shareholders, everyone." Surprise. The stock was up. The company was profitable again. And Mulachi had met earning targets 10 quarters in a row after that. She joined, and within 3 years, she ensured that the stock was up. The company was profitable again, and she had met the earning targets for 10 years in a row after that. So what did she do? The power of relationship is a crucial complement to the power of position. Her deft combination of patience, persistence, diplomacy offers an instructive example of the leader frame through the political frame. Let us see what she could have done. She first set an agenda setting. And agenda setting is when she creates a goal. She created a goal, and then she started mapping the political terrain. She wanted to understand who are the people, who are the key people through whom she has to work. Because without understanding the political terrain, it's a foolhardy to plunge into a minefield without knowing where the explosives are buried. Yet many people do the same thing. They don't study the political terrain, they enter into it. Then what did she do? She started networking and forming coalitions. With an agenda and a map in hand, Mulcahy could move to developing relationship with the key constituents. The top job gave Mulcahy substantial authority, but also makes her dependent on the cooperation of a large number of internal and external people. Her authority would be meaningless if the internal and the external people did not support her. So she started creating networking. How did she do that? She did that with bargaining and negotiating with them. We often associate bargaining and negotiating with commercial, legal, labor relation transactions. From a political perspective, bargaining is central to decision making. Negotiating makes a difference whenever two or more parties in the same interest are present, and there is a conflict and you need to reach an agreement. Imagine, Xerox had no money. The future was doomed. The bankers had to receive a huge amount of money, 17.1 billion, and Xerox had only 154 million in cash. That means there was no way Xerox could have paid the bankers. She called the bankers, negotiated with them, told them, if you're not going to support me, you're going to lose everything. But if you support me, maybe we can sell out something. And in the process, she could get what she wanted. She negotiated with the top management that unless they put their best foot forward, they will not have a job. They negotiated with the union that if they are not going to come and do the extra bit for a much lesser amount of return, the company is doomed, then the career is doomed. She negotiated with everyone boldly. She led from the front, and in the process ensured that everything could be achieved. A deft combination of patience, persistence, diplomacy, bargaining, negotiating. This is another case study in the Harvard Business School to drive the importance of political savvy in being able to execute leadership. Without a clear structure, leadership cannot be executed because you require a structure if you have to drive an organization. Clear chain of command, clear division of labor, clear responsibilities. But all that is going to be manned by people. So you need to understand what advocacy and inquiry is all about. How to investigate people, understand them, and then pick the right person for the right job and create an integrative team. And in driving an organization, political savvy is very important, because even within the family is held together only through political savvy. By being able to map the terrain, if the mother doesn't understand what are the key strengths and weaknesses of her husband, how to negotiate with him, how to establish a working relationship with him, the family will collapse. Be it father, mother, siblings, uncles, aunties, grandparents, everyone is having a particular agenda through which they are moving through life, and being able to deftly, patiently, persistently, and diplomatically bargain and negotiate a settlement beneficial for all. That is what political savvy all about. That brings us to the symbolic frame. Symbolic leaders lead by example. Totally by example. They use symbols to unite and inspire followers. This is by far the most tricky and the most powerful of all the frames that are there in the human mind, and the most difficult one to discern. We will understand the symbolic frame through a very, very interesting case study of international politics. The year is 2009. The event is the presidential election held on 12th June 2009. The fight was principally between Mir Hussein Musavi, the opponent, the opposition leader, and the then President Muhammad Ahmadinejad. These two people were contesting. Everything was against Muhammad Ahmadinejad. The world media was against him. We all know that the world media was against Iran in 2009. The Western countries, the NATO, the US, they were hell-bent on bringing down President Ahmadinejad's government. Money was pouring into Iran supporting Mir Hussein Musavi. Everyone knew that the failure, the loss of President Ahmadinejad was only a matter of time. The election took place on 12th June morning. Surprise. By 13th early morning, the news was already out. The result was out. President Ahmadinejad had won by a thumping majority of 63%. The world was absolutely convinced that it could not have happened. Not just the world, even the Iranian people revolted like nobody's business. They started asking, where the hell is my vote? I did not vote for the president. I had voted for Mir Hussein Musavi. There was rioting on the streets of Tehran. Entire Iran was in flames. Entire West was shocked. How could an election have been hijacked so blatantly? Absolute disregard for democracy. 3 days down the line, rioting of unimaginable proportion was going on. 3 days later, the supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei appeared before the world and announced that the victory of President Muhammad Ahmadinejad was a divine assessment. He said it was dictated by the supreme God. Can you imagine? An election being decided by divine assessment? Who has heard of it? Rioting stopped. People accepted it. The president took the oath. Iran had its president back again. And that president was Muhammad Ahmadinejad. Friends, this divine assessment, this symbolic intervention of God has taken place in every religion, and every religious leader has used this. And the power is so much ingrained within us that we have all submitted to it. I remember President Desmond Tutu, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, so one word, he said, the white men came. They told us to close our eyes and that they will show us divinity. We closed our eyes. When we opened it, we had the Bible, they had the land. The symbolic frame. They interpret experience. They interpret experience. Symbolic leaders interpret experience in a world of uncertainty and ambiguity. A key function of the symbolic leadership is to offer plausible and hopeful interpretation of experience. Let me give you a much more modern example, an example with which you will be able to align yourself. Who does not remember President John F. Kennedy channeling youthful exuberance into the Peace Corps and other initiatives with his stunning inaugural challenge? When John F. Kennedy took the position of a President of the United States of America, in his inaugural address, he challenged the world by saying, ask not what the country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. If this is not interpretation, what is? Here is a person who has taken command as a president, and the day he takes command as a president, he's asking you, tell me, what can you do for me? Don't ask me what I am going to do for you. They interpret experience. He interpreted his experience of victory as a president by asking you to do something for his country. They develop and communicate a hopeful vision. Howard Schultz. Just imagine. He built the Starbucks empire from a fledgling company. Just imagine a man who could imagine that an American person will pay $1.5 for a cup of espresso. But what did he do? He did not sell coffee. He sold a place between home and work where you can connect with others and reconnect with yourself. He was selling a physical space in the Starbucks restaurant. He was not selling coffee. He was communicating to you a vision of a place between your work and your home, which will be your own, where you can connect with others and possibly reconnect with yourself after a tough time in the office. They tell you stories. Do you remember your grandparents? How they introduced you to the world of morals? As you are sitting on their lap, they were telling you stories, fables, and helping you make sense of the world all around you. And then they convened rituals and ceremonies. How many of you eagerly look forward to the annual Best Employee Award? How many of you look forward to your birthday party? How many of you receive invitation for weddings? Even today morning, I was asked to be a keynote speaker in a program which was recognizing the need for leadership among students. All these are convening rituals and ceremonies to drive a particular message into the world. And finally, symbolic leaders always respect history and use it to their advantage. Why? Because history is very, very, very important. Any person who fails to remember history is bound to repeat it, and history more often than not is the record of the failures of human beings. When we talk of history, we talk of the pandemic. When we talk of history, we talk of the freedom struggle. When we talk of history, we talk of the World War. What are these, if not record of human failings? And if you don't respect these human failings, you're bound to repeat it. That brings us, my dear friend, to how to recognize these things. Is there a template? Is there an algorithm with which we can work through these 4 frames? Yes, there is. Let's see what that algorithm is. What are the structured, people-oriented, political, and symbolic frames in various contexts? In the context as a metaphor for an organization, what is a structured, people-oriented or political and symbolic frame in the concept, a central concept for a person as an image of leadership and what are the challenges such leaders will face. In a metaphor for organization, structured leadership can be a factory. For people orientation, it is a family. You can use the family as a metaphor for people orientation. The jungle for politics, where every animal is fighting for its survival, for its own space. And a temple for the symbolic could be a church, a temple, a mosque, or anything would be a very good symbol for a symbolic frame. And what is the central concept? Rules, roles, goals, technology, policies, environment. This is what is important in a structure frame. For a people frame, needs, emotions, skills, and relationships. All the rules, roles, goals, technology, policies, and environment will fail if you don't respect the needs of the people, the emotions of the people, the skills which are required to execute all the activities, and the relationship between various components of an organization and society. That is where people orientation comes in. Power, conflict, competition, organizational politics, authority, freedom, the conflict between two and more people, the competition which exists for the superordinate goal, the politics which is played to get a piece of the cake is all a political game which is going on. That is the political framework. And finally, the culture, the meaning, metaphor, ritual stories, heroes, ceremonies, which is what organization and families are all about. It's the symbolic frame. How many times we say that this is not the culture of a family, things are not done this way? How much do we try to make meaning of what our life is in the family context, in the social context, in the context of the country? It's all symbolic. A person who has got a structure frame has a social architecture. He thinks of himself as an architect of a company, building society. Whereas a people-oriented person, his image of a leadership is one of empowerment. He talks of empowering people, giving the power back to the people. And the political person is talking about advocacy and political savvy. He is constantly playing one against the other. And this one against the other is driven by his agenda. And the symbolic one is all about inspiration and significance. His constant objective is to inspire people and create significance of events which are happening all around to make meaning out of it. And what is the basic leadership challenge which a structure person feels? Attuned to structure and task, technology and environment. He is constantly striving to find his place in the structure and the task which is on hand. Update himself with the technology and merge with the environment. That is the challenge for the leadership, if it is structural in nature. Aligned with organization, human needs and talent is the challenge for the people-oriented people. They're always looking to make sense of their contribution to people in an organization or a society. How they are working towards improving the talent. Develop an agenda and power base. How powerful they are in their organization, in the society. How much they are recognized is what the political frame is always concerned about. Everything else is secondary. And how much they are able to create faith, hope, and meaning and belief in themselves with the people all around them is what is the challenge of the symbolic people. Ask yourself what concerns you, and you will know what your frame is. People-oriented. What are the barriers? What leadership role will suit you? And what will be your fundamental strategy in leading your life? This framework will help you understand that slightly better. The barriers, leadership roles, and strategy. People-oriented people are always anxiety, and their problem is they feel they are incompetent. They are always assessing their competencies. The leadership role they are best suited is of that of a coach. They make excellent coach. And the strategy they should adopt to go forward in life is to get good training and good support personnel around them. If you are a person who is over anxious and constantly given to questioning your competency, you could have a strong people orientation frame in your mind. If you have a strong people orientation, you will make an excellent coach. And the strategy to improve yourself is to undergo lots of training in areas which you feel will take you forward and find people who will support you in that journey. If you are a person who has got a structured frame, loss of direction and confusion can be your biggest barrier. If you are unable to understand what is the structure in which you find yourself and what is your position in that structure, you could feel that you are confused and you don't have any direction. You love building things. You are an architect. You would suit very ideally in team building activities, in building a team, directing a team, goal setting. All these things will be your strength. And your strategy should be redesigned and restructured. We have seen that structure-oriented people are good at experimenting. If you are not experimenting, time you started, start thinking how to redesign and restructure everything around you. You will find satisfaction and you will find lots of answers to the problems that you are having. Political is all about conflict and opposing coalitions. You are constantly looking at people around you as adversary. You are constantly looking at conflicts in your relationship with people around you because you are basically a politician and a peacemaker. You like to play the role of a peacemaker. You like to arbitrate between different people, different communities, different societies. Even in organizations, you would like to help people strike a balance and come onto the same platform. You are a person who should adopt a strategy of creating arenas and managing conflict. Try to understand society in terms of the arenas that it is divided into and identify the conflicts in these arenas and learn how to manage it. And the symbolic people, loss of meaning and clinging to the past. The past you have to respect, but you should not cling to it. When you cling to it, you lose meaning because the present is an ever-evolving work in progress. The past is the reason why the present is, and the present is the reason for what the future will be. Those of you who are finding loss of meaning in what you are doing, and you are constantly evaluating what you are doing with what you have done in the past, kindly drop it. You are basically a healer and a storyteller. A healer is one who has got huge future orientation. You cannot heal if you do not have future orientation. Healing always happens in the future, not in the present or in the past. The past is responsible for the pain you are undergoing now. And what you do to that pain today will only heal the person and create a better future for him. And being a story and a healer, you need to understand that you are clinging to the past, and that is the reason why you're losing meaning. Leave the past, get ahead, create ceremonies and rituals for letting go. Create rituals and ceremonies for letting go. And you will find that the strategy will work and you will move ahead. So, in one single frame called a human being, there are 4 frames: the structure, the people, the political, and the symbolic. What is your frame? Thank you, friends. We are exactly 5 minutes away from 2 o'clock. Thank you for a patient hearing. I'm open for questions, if any.
Can the frames intersect?
I beg your pardon?
Can the frames intersect?
Of course they will. All the 4 are there in you. You are giving supremacy to one in place of the other. You can traverse the grid, and the grid is already given. Check which frame you require and you can move through it. This is a 2-hour program of my 6-hour workshop on the Reptile means a leader, where the workshop has various activities. Maybe at some later date, I can take you through those activities, and we can work on them, and you will be able to understand how it works.
Sir, Suraj here.
Yeah, tell me.
Is it good to develop the frame which we already have more prominent in us, or should we look forward to develop other frames in us?
You need to balance the frames.
Okay.
And we can also improve skills where we are weak in that frame.
Obviously, see, now you know the 4 frames are there.
Yes.
And you know that you can work through any of the frames, because at various stages of various places, you are working through those various frames.
Correct. And now we also know where we were weak and what happened due to that.
Yes.
We can
So
correct it.
the grid is available, work through it.
Correct.
And any given situation, the tendency will be for the most predominant frame to appear.
Right, sir.
For instance, supposing there is a crisis in the company. Performance is down. What will a structure-oriented person do?
Reframe the policies.
Reframe the policies, restructure the team, redesign the objectives,
New recruitments.
reprocess everything. What will the people-oriented person do?
Motivate the people, existing
Try
people.
to motivate the people,
Inspire them.
What will the political person do?
He will go play politics.
He will see who is the right person in that job, whether the right person is sitting in the right place or not.
Correct.
Whether this person can be moved to this place, what inducement I can give to ensure that he will come and do the job properly.
Play chess.
What coercion I can do, how do I bargain and negotiate myself into that sort of a position, and what will a symbolic person do? He will start telling stories of how in the past things have been done. He will start creating ceremonies and rituals for success. He will start creating a pin. He will say, this awarding will be done. I will call you the best worker in the market. All sorts of things. Now you see, these are the 4 different things which the 4 different type of people will give stress to. What happens if you integrate all the 4? Now that you know that all these 4 frames are there, sit down quietly, spend half an hour time, and see what is it you are attracted towards and what lacuna could be there. What is it you can do if you adopt the position of other frames? Put on that hat and think.
Right.
Because this is life. Yes.
Yeah, Arun sir, I was just about to ask you that these frames that you have given, it is a resemblance to all the hats that we have spoken, right?
I'm not unable to hear you clearly. Can you unmute?
Arun sir, Tasneem here. I'm
Yeah.
saying that all these frames that we are talking about, they are what we have learned in the different hats that we have spoken, right?
No, that is different.
Okay.
That is constructivist theory. That is not nothing to do with frames and bias. This comes under the heading of frames and bias.
Okay. Okay. And if we put effort, these can be changed and these can be developed.
Nothing can be changed. It can only be developed.
Okay.
See, what is ingrained inside you has started from the first second of your birth. You cannot tamper with it. It is the software.
So which means you are saying that if we are able to absolutely identify what is engraved to us, rather than struggling between the frames, and then work on developing the others.
See, you ask yourself the question, what frame you are working through most of the time.
Okay.
You will know. Okay, supposing let's say there is a person who says, Pati hai bhai, jo bolenge humko karna hai. My husband, whatever he says I have to do. What is the frame you are working by?
That would be people oriented, right?
No, symbolic. You are giving more preference to the term Pati.
Okay.
Political. पति है भाई, अभी ये बोल दिए हैं, रुको, जल्दीबाजी मत करो, थोड़ा शांत होने दो उनको, फिर समझाएंगे उनको. Now what is the frame?
Oh, yes.
What is the frame?
It is the political which you said.
Absolutely political frame. तीसरा है, पति है भाई, ऐसे बोल रहे हैं, लेकिन ये उनके लिए अच्छा नहीं है. मैं क्या कर सकती हूं अपने से डिफरेंटली इनका काम करते हुए so that he will not lose and he will be benefited. ये कौन सा फ्रेम है?
Structured.
हाँ, people.
People oriented.
People, yeah.
Are you understanding what I'm telling?
Absolutely, absolutely. You just keep on telling only, Arunji. You don't stop any of your sessions. I mean, you stop doing everything else. You just keep on taking sessions only. Oh my God, this one was so enlightening. I mean, it was so direct, so simple to understand, but such a meaningful one.
So you see, these frames are beautiful way of understanding leadership. And this is what the subconscious reptilian brain is all about.
So
maybe, you know,
means,
next week, you know, maybe what we can do is, if we have time, we can have another 2 to 3 hour workshop where I can give a problem and we will see how each of the people, frame people, will handle that problem.
Yeah, that would be a very good exercise. But just one more thing, Arunji. Now that we have understood, we just got a brief idea of the different frames. And if we are supposed to be dealing with people, can we also take these as what do you call, you know, just to understand the frames of other people and then help them to develop themselves or grow or get our work done?
You see, one thing I'll tell you, never try to change a person without the person wanting to be changed by you.
No, not changing, to understand the person.
Yeah, you can definitely.
Okay.
You can definitely know, see, in your own house, look at the people, look at your husband, look at your mother-in-law, father-in-law, son, daughter-in-law, uncle, auntie. and see which frame they fall into. Each one will be exhibiting a particular frame.
And this can also help us after we have understood which frame they fall. It can also help us drive our conversations accordingly to them.
That is a political frame speaking.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Now you have adopted a political frame. You see,
Okay.
Tasneem, you have very clearly shown in your conversation that you have a very strong political frame.
Okay.
See, constantly, what is it you are thinking? How to take advantage of this frame concept and surge ahead in your relationship with people, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's a political
Absolutely.
frame.
Right now that is exactly what I'm thinking.
That is a political frame.
Okay. Fair enough. It was
See, there's nothing bad or good about anything.
okay.
Okay. It is like that, that's all.
You got a very good understanding. I really loved today's session.
So can we break for the day? If there are no more questions, if there are any questions, please ask.
There is no question, sir.
Thank you everyone for coming on the platform, and a very special thanks to Mr. Gilbert Banda for coming, because this is the time when he is normally in his church. So now he has to go back for the mass now. I'm very sorry for holding you back, Mr. Banda. Thank you for coming.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
I will be sending the video over, the recording over to everyone. I will also send you, Mr. Banda.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir. Thank you.
Bye-bye.